Dr. Alaric Thorne first glimpsed the edge of Raven's Hollow beneath a bruised October sky, his breath coiling in the chill air as the village unfolded like a dream half-remembered. The year was 1918, though the village looked like it had been trapped in a century far older. Beneath the gabled roofs and sagging chimneys, time dripped slow as molasses, sour with peat and an air of unspoken things. He had followed this path not just from Mapsbury Hospital, where he once lectured on obscure cranial diseases, but from the fissured valleys of his own subconscious. For weeks, spectral dreams had haunted his sleep, stark shores littered with barnacled bones, a ship rusted bronze by time, and a noise deeper than thunder quaking from beneath. They began with a whisper and ended always with the name, Raven's Hollow. The townsfolk took little notice of his arrival, save for curtain flickers and the shuffle of boots deeper into alleys. They offered him no welcome, but the landscape did. Open arms of withered trees and peat moss fields crusted white with salt, though no sea had touched Raven's Hollow in recorded memory. Thorne took residence in the old Widow Galloway's boarding house, where the wallpaper peeled like old scabs and the air smelled faintly of mildew and clay. In the town square, sagging notice boards bore ancient flyers and a tattered scrap muttering about a derelict vessel, a wreck of the waves, stranded in a hollow no ocean air touched. It was madness, surely, yet it matched the image that clung under his skull like silt, one seen only in dreams. He sought out the Reverend Mott, the only villager who spoke without spitting. Mott's rheumy eyes shimmered as he traced the air with trembling fingers, drawing paths from memory alone. Out yonder, past the Devil's Brook and the drowned oak, you'll find it. Not a ship of man's making, not any more. Best you don't go, Doctor. But Thorne had already begun. At dusk on October 16th, with a leather journal in one pocket and a snub-nosed revolver in the other, not for beasts, but for fate, he walked the muddy trail past leprous trees and brittle-branched hedgerows until he reached the edge of the known. There it lay, skeletal and listing in a dried ravine where no tide could reach. Its riveted hull loomed like a tombstone forged from the bones of dead sea gods. Moss clung to it as though fearing to fall, and age had twisted its visage into something uncanny, something watching. As he placed his hand upon the rust-pocked metal, a tremor breathed upward through earth and marrow. The soil buckled beneath his boots, and the ravine groaned like a slumbering titan turned in its grave. Birds scattered into a discolored sky, and far off, a howling like violated air curled into silence. It was not thunder, it was awakening. In that moment, Dr. Alaric Thorne knew something ancient had opened its eyes, and the village he had dreamed his way into was no longer merely a place, but a threshold. The fog clung low to the crooked path as Dr. Alaric Thorne pressed toward the dried ravine, lantern swinging in his grip. The villagers had pointed him toward the forest's edge, reluctantly and without meeting his eyes. There, far from the sea as fables declared, the rotting hulk of an ancient vessel leaned against the gnarled roots of a fallen tree. Half buried in moss and dead leaves, its bow pierced the air like the upraised arm of a drowned man begging for reprieve. Thorne hesitated only a moment before clambering aboard. Iron had long ago surrendered to rust. The planks beneath his boots groaned in protest. Fungal growth wrapped around the banisters like fingers attempting to reclaim what time had forsaken. Inside, the ship's skin was darker still. Strange sigils lined the interior bulkheads, unfamiliar to any language he knew, yet they tugged at something in his dreaming mind. In the dimness of the former cargo hold, he found it. A fossil embedded in what remained of the deck. Unlike any creature Thorne had studied, it bore wings, bat-like and skeletal, curling protectively around a malformed, eyeless head. Its bone ridges shimmered with a nacreous shimmer, the sort Alaric recognized only from his most nocturnal reveries. His lantern flickered. "Alaric!" A voice came from the hatch above. He turned sharply. Framed in mist and shadow stood Elias Gray, clean-shaven and dressed like a gentleman of the universities, though his face was lined deeper than memory recalled. "Elias?" said Thorne. "My God, I thought you died in Constantinople." "Reports of my demise," Elias replied with a wry smile, descending into the hold, "have been exaggerated, as have tales of this town." They embraced, if stiffly. Gray's coat was damp, though the morning had been dry. "I followed your letters," Gray added, glancing at the fossil. "The dreams. You spoke of the fossil before you ever saw it, didn't you?" Thorne nodded. "It called me, I think. I've half recognized this beast all my life, Elias. Its outline has visited my sleep for decades." Elias knelt beside the relic, running aged fingers across its surface. "Do you feel it?" he whispered. "The pressure, as if the air thickens when you're near." "Yes," Alaric admitted, unease blooming. "It hums in the bones." Gray's gaze flicked upward. "And the sigils, they're not random. They're protective. Wards, perhaps, meant to—" Suddenly, a soft tremor ran through the ship. The previously dormant bones shimmered, and a low crooning whisper, not quite sound, brushed across Alaric's thoughts. He recoiled. Elias did not. "We should go," Thorne urged. "Seal this place. Report our findings to—" "No." Elias's tone was cold, final. "There's more to uncover." The doctor surveyed his old colleague, unreadable eyes, hands still resting on the fossil, almost possessively. Outside, the wind began to howl. The ship's timbers groaned once more, but this time something answered in a voice that was not of this world. Thorne turned toward the exit. The unease in his chest had metastasized. The path he'd begun was no longer one of academic inquiry. Shadows lengthened. Whispers stirred the veil, and the fossil had begun to warm beneath Elias Gray's touch. The moon hung low over Raven's Hollow, full and red as a weeping eye, its light filtering through veils of mist as Dr. Alaric Thorne stood at the edge of the ravine. The fossil, now unearthed from the ship's metallic entrails, pulsed faintly under moonlight, its blackened surface slick with dew, its etched spirals shifting when observed out of the corner of the eye. Since its exposure, Thorne's dreams had grown more vivid and monstrous. He no longer merely witnessed visions. He lived them. Tonight, he wasn't dreaming. A low whisper slithered through the branches of the dead hemlocks. It was not in any tongue Thorne knew, but his bones understood. Cold dread seeped into his marrow with each syllable. The whisper came not from without, but within, from the fossil lying wrapped in oilcloth beside him, and from something vast and decaying overhead. It emerged not from the earth, but from the spaces between stars. The Byakhee descended, its wings not flapping, but dripping. Rotting membranes flailed in a wind that smelled of crushed jasmine and putrefied liver. Its form defied linear anatomy. Slick feathers gave way to exposed ribbing, skin molted in ribbons, and a beaked face twisted with impossible sorrow. The creature hovered inches above the soil, bound not by gravity, but by summons. Thorne staggered back. "This isn't real," he muttered. But the reek of ozone and mold denied him that comfort. Footsteps approached. Elias Gray, lantern in hand, stepped through the fog like death on furlough. He dropped his pretense of scholarly concern. Gone was the mask of friendship. "You've done well, Alaric," Elias said softly. "Dreams are powerful tools. With the right guidance, they can open doors, and I merely nudged yours toward the right threshold." Thorne's heart thundered. "You called this thing. You used me." Elias tilted his head, eyes gleaming. "You brought the fossil out. Only you could, descendant of the Thorne lineage, whose ancestor once sealed it in that vessel of iron and chance. My patron whispered to me, told me how to guide your feet here." The artifact pulsed again, and the Byakhee let out a wet, buzzing bray of recognition. The air warped, pressure crushing down as if the sky itself bowed. "Our cult has waited over a century," Elias continued, voice aflame with reverence. "This creature is merely a herald. Others will follow." "I won't let you," Thorne growled, stepping toward Elias, but the ground fissured beneath him. Shapes writhed in the exposed dirt, roots or tendrils. Elias raised the fossil with both hands, and the Byakhee shrieked in reverence. In that instant, Thorne realized the fossil was no bone. It was a chrysalis. The thing inside it stirred. Blinded by despair, he lunged, knocking Elias backward and clutching the fossil. His mind drowned in alien geometries, stars that bled, and ancient names never meant for human tongues. The whisper returned, now inside him. But so too came memory, stolen from dreams. How to disrupt the bond. Thorne fled into the trees as the Byakhee took flight, the fossil writhing in his pack, the betrayal of a friend burning hotter than any fire from the stars. The village burned with stars that had no place in the sky. Raven's Hollow shuddered as Dr. Alaric Thorne staggered through smoke and bleeding earth, heart pounding to a rhythm not his own. The rotting Byakhee screamed above him, wings tattered and blackened with time, its corpse flesh pulsing with unearthly vigor. Each shriek tore rifts in the air, revealing glimpses of churning voids beyond comprehension. Beneath the flickering moon, Elias Gray bled laughter and ichor, his face a mask of awe and madness. Around his neck swung the fossil, no longer inert, but glowing with a sickly light, bones twisting in geometries foreign to nature. "You cannot cage the fire that dreams," Elias whispered, blood running from his eyes. "You were always meant to deliver it." Alaric felt the weight of every dream that had led him here. Memories collapsed inward, whispers in forgotten tongues, the pull of tides that did not exist, knowledge not his own flickering behind his thoughts. The dreaming had been a beckoning from beyond. But still, he fought. He drew the carved obsidian talisman he had half believed symbolic, a relic gleaned from a lucid nightmare etched in his memory. As the Byakhee descended, he spoke the incantation that tasted like rust and sorrow, the words taking form in the air as twisted, luminescent vines. The creature shrieked and spasmed, the fossil flaring white-hot. Elias lunged at him, blade raised. Alaric turned, driving the talisman into Elias's chest. The air collapsed. Flames, black and soundless, swallowed the cultist. The fossil screamed, not through mouths, but through the bones of the earth. Cracks spidered beneath their feet. The derelict ship, hidden for centuries, split open like an egg, disgorging impossible machinery and carvings that pulsed. Raven's Hollow wept stone and timber into the abyss. Alaric, burning with pain and cold, forced the incantation's final syllables. The Byakhee disintegrated mid-flight into a cloud of spores and ash. The fossil shuddered once, then cracked with a sound like a star dying. The ground surged, houses imploded. The chapel's bell rang beneath the soil. He ran, through collapsing streets and shrieking air, over the remains of memory and myth. And then silence. Morning broke over scorched earth. Raven's Hollow was gone, erased as if never built. Only a leprous scar marked where cosmic ambitions had taken root. Alaric Thorne sat coughing dirt and blood, the talisman now inert beside him. The dreams had stopped, or perhaps grown quieter. But his mind bore scars deeper than bone. He would wander now, a man who had touched outer realms and paid the tithe. The world would forget Raven's Hollow, but he would remember. And the stars, those wrong, waiting stars, might one day remember him. In the dust of vanquished gods, one mortal had chosen defiance, and for the briefest moment, it had been enough.